アーサーなの？うん。おかえりなさい。本当に戻ってきたのね。
あ、アーサー、帰ってきたんだな。
ママやめれちゅ。泣いちゃダメ。
The beginning after the end, episode number 8. And before I talk about the episode, let me just say this. I never really gave it much thought, and I've told you guys before, I've read the webtoon, the web novel, you know, whatever it was, and it's not something that I ever really gave thought to before. But I was watching this episode, and they make Arthur seem so much older than he is. As of right now, he's 8 years old. When he was 5 or whatever, that made it seem like he was like 8 during that time, and now he looks like he's like 10 or 12 years old. You know, probably more like 10 or 12 around there. But it never really hit me of how small he really is, because I was thinking, I was like, okay, my son is like 8 years old right now. Okay, he's gonna be 8 in like 2 months, and I was like, my boy is little. You know what I mean? 8 is little. My daughter's 10, gonna be 11, whatever. She's like, much taller, much bigger, going through that puberty stage. And that makes sense. But my son, he's a tiny dude. He's a tiny dude. And he's not tiny dude because like he's little. He's tiny because like, if you look at his class that he's in, like I look at him at school and the kids are the same age. They're all about the same height. Maybe you have like one little tree every now and then, but for the most part, they're all, they're small. And I was like, man, it never really hit me of how small Arthur, like how they depict Arthur versus how like he's a baby. Like he's a baby. He's only been alive for 8 years. That's crazy. You know what I mean? But they depict him like he's, significantly older. The conversations he has with the other adventurers, the other kids. And although he is very intelligent, I don't want to take it away from him. It just never really hit me of like, oh man, this dude's he's a little dude. He's a little dude. He's little dude doing big dude things. I just wanted to call that out because I always thought it was so weird. Of like, okay, why did they make him so tiny? They should have made his life like they should have made his adventuring life start at about now. The things that happened to him when they should have made that happen to him about 8 and then age him up to like 11-ish. It would still be the same kind of story, but it would just make a little more sense when you start putting your brain to work. Regardless, so this episode was all about homecoming. It was all about Arthur coming home to his parents and meeting his little sister for the first time. And, a big portion of the episode was him telling about his time in the elf country and his time with Virion. And he kind of glazed over some facts, because he didn't want to worry his parents very much. It was all about him waking up to the fact of how important his family is to him in this world. He was offered a spot at a prestigious, is that a stroke that I just had? Prestigious school. But he didn't take it because he wants to stay with his family. He wants to spend time with his little sister that he just met. So it was all about him getting kind of reintegrated into the family and then meeting the family that his family is staying with because his dad has like a guard's job. He's like a trainer. And his dad has had a significant power up too, which is really, really cool. And he had a battle with his dad, testing, orange circle mage and red circle mage, whatever. And he showed his dad some stuff, right? He showed him some lightning magic. He showed him some water magic. And then the end of the episode was like, him kind of spending time with the little girl who's part of the family there as well too. And learning that she wants to be a mage, but she hasn't, awakened anything yet. She's about Art's age as well. And then the episode tips us off with the adventures that were part of his parents, when he went missing. And, they felt pretty bad and stuff too. And him kind of planning out, okay, what's my next phase in life? What's my next thing I'm going to do? Am I just going to spend time here? So it's just kind of seeing him, do a mental struggle with that experience too. So that's really it though. Not a whole lot happened. This was just a decent, okay episode of the beginning after the end. Nothing spectacular happened. Nothing crazy happened. Just a reunion of Art and his family. So cute episode. I would say it was a 6 out of 10 episode. Nothing special. Wasn't bad. Wasn't good. Just just right there. It was an episode. It was a fine, okay episode of the show, in my opinion. And the episode ended off with, let me think. It ended up with them showing the little girl that's part of the family. And you know that Art's probably going to intervene there, and maybe he'll help her awaken her magic. Maybe he'll train her. I don't know. But that's probably going to be the next thing that comes in our journey on the beginning after the end. But yeah, think about that age thing. He's 8. And if you have a little brother, a little sister, or a kid, you know, or a niece or a nephew, or, you know, that is that age, think about how tiny they are. They're little itty bitty baby people. And the fact that they're depicting him as not that is a little crazy. Again, he's the main character. He's supposed to be very intelligent. He's a reincarnated person, their stuff. But it's just the way that they make him seem much older. You know, sparring his dad. He's 8. You know what I mean? They kind of did this with Rudius in Mushoku Tensei as well too. But I think we're always reminded of his stature in that show. He was a tiny little dude. And they didn't make him seem not like a tiny little dude. And eventually they did age him up, but they still made him seem very immature looking. But Art, they don't quite do that. They make him look like he's 12, but bro's a tiny little 8-year-old dude, like a little itty bitty guy. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.